This is the formula for finding a gradient of a slope. So the formula says m, which represents a gradient, is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Before we get to working with the questions, we need to understand this first. The gradient of a slope can either be positive or negative. In this case, I have two lines, the pink line and the blue line. The pink line represents a positive gradient, and then the blue line represents a negative gradient. So we can see visually before we can even calculate our gradient. If we find that our line is in this direction, an increasing direction, we should be expecting a positive gradient. If our line is in a decreasing direction, we should be expecting negative gradient. So since we know that now, let's go ahead and use the points from our last question where we did the distance formula. We had 1 is to 2 minus 1 is to minus 1. And from the previous video, we found that the distance between these 2 points is equal to root 13. And another thing is that when we drew this line from the previous question, found that it was in the increasing direction. So we should be expecting our gradient to be positive. So this was the previous question where we drew the line and we can see it's in an increasing direction. So the question would say, find the gradient between these 2 points. So first things first, we need to label our points. This is our first point, our second point. So for our first point, it's going to be x, but since it's our first point, it's x1, comma, y, but since it's still our first point, it's going to be y1, close brackets. Then our second point, it's x, but since it is our second point, it's x2, comma, y, also y2. So from here, we go ahead and substitute into our formula. Then it says m is equal to, now it says y2 minus y1. So clearly our y2 is negative 1, our y1 is 2. So y2 is going to be negative 1 minus our y1, which is 2, all over x2 minus x1. Clearly our x2 is negative 1, our x1 is 1. So we get negative 1 minus 1. So from this stage, you can go ahead and punch everything into your calculator and you can get your final answer. But this is m minus 1 minus 2, it's minus 3, over minus 1 minus 1, it's minus 2. So a negative over a negative is obviously going to be positive. So it's going to be 3 over 2. So obviously our gradient is positive as we expected. So this is the end of the video and you are still here. So please just take 1 second to like the video and subscribe to the channel so that more people can see it.